Hello and welcome.
Hello.
First of all, I just want to share just a bit of practicalities with you. We have 3 monitors here and loads of lighting, and we also have a producer in the corner. So if we sometimes look elsewhere and not in the camera, it's not because we don't care, it's just because we have loads of other stuff just to make sure that we monitor it all. And also I'll also monitor questions during the webinar. So if you have any questions, please just ask them there. We'll take some questions during the presentation, and then we'll wrap up with questions in the end as well. Yeah,
that's it.
That's it, I think. But then I also just want to say that we'll host our next webinar in English in the fall, mirroring all Danish activities that we have. And watch out for our newsletter, because we'll post the date once we know it there. And also we always have interesting articles there covering topics that our users in general find hard or have issues with, or just find interesting. So also, if you have any thing that you want us to cover, please, you can also always contact us.
Or reach out if you want the different analysis and so on. We'll get back to that towards the end.
Exactly. So today the topic is why job analysis matters, and it is because it's a topic that we are increasingly getting questions about, and also something that we over the years and also in research can see is getting more and more focus, and also which is so important in order to make an assessment that it has the proper amount of quality in it. So that is what we're going to talk about today, and we're really trying to I just need to make sure that I click the right buttons. I can see. So this we are, it's all the monitors. So we are really trying to bridge a gap that we find between research and practice, and that is what we're going to discuss today.
Go into the depth.
Exactly. So just a quick presentation. I think that most of you might have met Alexandra already. She's an instructor in our certification courses, and also she also instructs our what's it called? Sorry,
masterclass.
Masterclass, where we give our view on data-driven HR and on bias-free recruitment. So this theme today is really closely linked to that. And myself, I'm head of our test development, and I'm also a co-author of the report that we're going to present today. We have different roles here. We'll try to
we will cover everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So welcome
to all of you.
Yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, we're excited. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Because we do experience, us specialized in recruitment, we do experience quite a operation or market where there's quite a lot of dilemmas. There is a war for talent, and especially this has been a time where it's been employees market, and especially for certain positions it's been very difficult to find the right candidate. So one gets tempted to just take the first candidate that drops by that actually fulfills some of the requirements. At the same time, there's a lot of focus on the time, because we need to rush. We have a hiring manager sitting there waiting for us to present candidates for the manager. And we have candidates dropping out of the process in the middle of everything. So it takes a lot of time, and we need to rush up. So time is money, and the recruitment cost needs to be reduced. But what is the balance really between rushing and has anybody actually ever made an idea about how much it costs to not follow the right procedure from the start? So because there is a limited talent pool out there, retention as an HR discipline becomes super important. Retention becomes a competitive parameter, because it takes toll on the existing employees when we have a position that we cannot fulfill, or that we need to replace somebody who's not delivering, or who's not living up to the culture really that we have out there. So retention is super important. So it is very important to find the right capacities for the organization. And there we mean both in relation to the job and obviously also in relation to the culture in the company.
Exactly. So one of the things that we always has a lot of focus on is how we can provide quality in all assessments. And in that, I have heard myself say this sentence a lot of times. So IQ is the single best predictor of job performance. I think you could wake me up at night and ask me, what is the most important thing in your job? And I think this would be what would come out of my mouth. And the reason that I would say that is because of a study. It was first conducted by Smith and Hunter in 1998. It's really famous. It was all, and then it was updated in 2016 by Smith and Schaefer. And what they have done is that they have dug into the last 100 years of research, and then they've compared 31 assessment methods in order to and their prediction of job success, but also of learning. And what they conclude is that GMA, general mental ability or intelligence, is the single best predictor of job performance. But also, if you dig into the article and look at the research, then we can see, because there is a but, then we can see that this is true, but it's there's a bit of a range between the correlation, whether we are talking about highly complex jobs, or as they say here, if it's for professional and managerial jobs compared to unskilled jobs. So instead of just saying overall that IQ is the single best predictor, maybe we should say something else, because maybe we should say that IQ is the best predictor when job complexity is medium to high. And that also means that we need to change this mantra, or what you can call it, and say that the choice of assessment method depends on the job. So we always need to consider the job. And this should be the new thing that I would say if you woke me up at night. Please consider the job before you say anything about which assessment methods would be the best to predict job performance. So also, instead of saying always assess IQ, what we're saying today and what we'll dig a lot more deep into is always conduct a job analysis. And I think that maybe some of you will ask yourself if that means that you shouldn't use PTL as much as you do today. And I think that the answer to that is probably no. So you should still use it in most positions, and that is because our target group is, for the most part, it is medium to high complexity jobs, but of course you should consider it. So you should consider for every position that you need to fill, you need to consider how high is the complexity in this job, and is it PTL that is the most proper product, the most proper assessment method, or do we have other assessment methods that would be better? And also, should we weight GMA high or low for this job?
Yeah.
So
we wake you up at night and you say what?
I say always conduct a job analysis.
Yes. Because the value of a job analysis, like the list of values, is very, very long. And we will present you to some of the most important ones here. First of all, the job analysis minimizes bias. And that is because we conduct a uniform process for all candidates. It's very important that we sort of have the guiding star in front of us, so that we decide what is important here in this process, and we do that before we meet one single candidate. And then we conduct a uniform process for all the candidates. And that leads me to the second one. It means that we create a fair assessment, because instead of comparing candidates with each other, maybe on not relevant criteria, we compare candidates with our ideal profile. So it becomes more professional and a more fair assessment of all the candidates, making sure that we focus on what is important instead of what we think, what we feel, and what we like, not least. And then number 3, it sets a foundation for the person job fit, because it's not really ambitious to think that you're able to find the perfect match if you don't know what is exactly is a requirement for this particular job. When you know what the requirements are, then you can set the foundation to be able to build the whole process based on that strong foundation. And then definitely it enhances the quality of the recruitment. Why is that? Well, in this market, a lot of managers would be like, shouldn't we just take the first candidate that comes by? Why should we test a candidate? Or why should we even conduct a job analysis for a candidate when we know we're only going to have one candidate or maybe 2 out there? But the thing is, then we close our eyes and we don't really know what we are getting. So just by knowing what we are looking for, then we also know what we are not getting when we compromise some of the qualities of the candidate. And that is very important for us for the next procedure. So how do we sort of onboard this candidate? How do we make this candidate be well in this particular job? How do we develop the candidate? So it means that we are 2 steps ahead of the process, and it just in general makes this recruitment process a lot more professional and high quality.
So Alexandra just said that the list was long, and therefore we have 4 points more to cover the value. We won't have another slide, don't worry. But what the job analysis can also do is also to guide the assessment method. So, for example, the GMA test, should we cover it, and how should we weight it? So also for the next section here, so it can also guide the weighting of the inputs that we have. So for example, in highly relational positions, maybe an emotional intelligence test might be a good thing to put into the process. And also maybe that should be weighed even more compared to the input to the intelligence tests or the GMA tests. Then we can also have a job analysis. It can also contribute to person environment fit or cultural fit, which we will cover later in the presentation. So not just the job, but also whether or not there is a fit to the rest of the organization and also to the team. So we are able to know beforehand how we should include a person, which sort of conflict potentials there might be in the fit and stuff like that. And then we can, the job analysis, and there's a lot of research that actually covers this, can also improve applicant perceptions. So actually we see that the more relevant, professional, and fair that a candidate feels that the process is, that perception actually also influence their perception of the company in total, and that can actually have high correlations with effects like job satisfaction, job performance, and also retention. So that is things that we would actually like, right? So so that's really interesting.
But when we look at in our platform people test match, then we can see that only 13% of all tests being done for a recruitment purpose actually has got a job profile attached to it. So that does leave quite a bit of room for improvement out there. So when we draw a statistical like this and show you, it's definitely not to point any fingers. We're actually telling you that you are not alone of getting around every time not producing a job profile. But when we have listed all these values, the 8 points that we just got through here, it definitely shows you that if you do come around making a job profile, a job analysis and then based on that create this job profile, there's definitely room for improvement, and you can professionalize your procedure, your HR procedure, and your recruitment procedure, and create very good return on investment based on that. So there's a lot of value that you do get out of this, but there are also good news. Yeah, there's some very good news, because we can tell you that it doesn't take a lot of time to conduct a really good job analysis. And we can also tell you that you are part of the key in doing this correctly.
Yeah. So
you as HR or as recruitment specialist are definitely a key to this.
So I think we'll just, I think you covered it perfect. Yeah. So we've dug into some research, and what we have found is one of the studies that we've found is this study of Robertson and Morrill from 2008. And it tells us that if we use just a little time in a hiring committee to create a consensus about which competencies that we're actually looking for, if we spend an hour or if we spend 2 days, doesn't make a difference.
No.
So, but what makes a difference is actually that we spend some time together to be able to form this consensus and to be able to actually talk about the position and find the foundation in order to make the proper assessment decisions. But what the same study also found is that if we just look at one partner in this process, they look at both what they call job analysis and what we would call recruitment specialists. But they also look at job experts, job managers, job incumbents, and they compare the groups. And what they see is that the job analysis is way better at conducting a job analysis. They are the consensus that is based on theirs is much higher. So what we take from this is that you are some of the key in order to make the job analysis. And also it's important that you don't just leave it in the hands of the managers. They are important as well, obviously, but you are part of the key because you know a lot about jobs in general, the organization in general, and stuff like that. And that is really important.
Yeah, and be able to translate job demands into something that then you can discover in the candidates and test maybe or check.
Exactly. And then also just another research paper that I want to highlight is one from Bäckström and Björklund from 2017. And they have looked at this systematicity across processes. So they have looked at hiring processes and how structured they were. And what they found was that with structure, you have a whole other level of quality. So the more structured the process, the more quality of hiring decisions. So that is that's one of the points that we want you to remember and take home from this presentation.
So as we just told you, there are some fairly simple requirements, or research shows that there are some fairly simple requirements really that we need to do in order to obtain very good value and make it worth actually invest this time in creating a job analysis. So in order to get this, we need to spend some time. Spend just a little time, not a lot, but do spend some time. Don't skip it. Research shows that that is not good at all. And then again, involve HR. You are the best translating these demands into something that we can then research into for the candidates. Do create the manager, obviously, who knows something about the job, but don't outsource the process to the manager alone. Don't let them do it alone. You need to be involved. And then structure the process. And really the key here is structure, and the more, the better. We will come back to that later, how to do that in reality.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just take a bit of a step back just to walk you through what we have done to get the knowledge that we have now. So we wanted to make a comprehensive literature review because we ourselves wanted to know more on this subject. And as we dug into the field, we could see that there was a lot of quality information here and really some interesting points that we wanted to share with you. So what we did was that we did a search in a number of scientific databases and found the most recent research on job analysis. And then we prioritized it because it was quite heavy. So we prioritized and narrowed it down to 20 relevant articles. And from that, we did we made a report and that is what we are presenting today. And we will also share it with you in the aftermail. So for the ones of you that are curious as to what we have dug into, you can see it here. Of course, as I said before, this will also be shared with you in the aftermail, so you can just dig in, please. And there's more
bedtime.
Exactly.
A little bedtime literature.
Exactly. So, and there's a little bit more, but we also covered most of it in this white paper, where we summed up the research on the field, and we divided it into 3 main chapters. One that introduces the concept of a job analysis, one that covers the value of a job analysis, and then one that covers best practices in conducting job analysis. And then, of course, we also shared with you our main recommendation based on that. But you'll have it in the aftermail, and what we're doing today is covering most of it here. But also when covering research, I think that we always tend to end up being a bit frustrated as well, because what they don't do is they don't answer a lot of how to do it. There's no concrete instructions at all, and they actually shy away from a thought about having something very concrete. They don't want to give us the recipe that we might all want. So to the ones that hope for that, I can say we don't have it because it's not there. But of course, we'll give you some guidelines anyway. And also in research, there's a lack of research in practice. So most of it is done in a research setting. And that is also one of the things that we work to have more of, is actually to have research in practice and research in high stake situations. So, but there's not a lot of research in academia on that. Not yet.
Not yet. Right. So let's dig into it, really. So what we're doing here, we're going to dig into some of the main conclusions in the report. And here we're starting at looking at understanding the job and the choice of methods. It's really two themes that we are going to dig into. And we start with understanding the job. And understanding the job is obviously under the job analysis, analyzing the job in order to find out what is really mandatory here. And there we look at 3 central concepts here. So we're taking in and presenting to you 3 central concepts that you can use as a framework really to analyze the job into depth. The first one is what we call person-environment fit, and it's like an umbrella, the term that we use here. And person-environment fit consists of 3 underlying things. The first one is the person-job fit, and that would be what you typically use and look at when you're conducting a job analysis or when you are fulfilling a job. So that is more the education that the person needs to have, or the job experience, the knowledge the person needs to have, and the skills that you need to have, and also personality traits that would be important in order to fit the actual job itself. But that's not the only thing. There is other things that is very important in order to make a person environment fit. And the next one is the person team fit. You need to make sure that this person fit into the existing team. So how is the team conducted? What value will this person come with into this particular team? What are the potential conflicts in the team, and how is the relationship with the manager in the team? So consider also the fit for the actual team. And then we have person organization fit, and that is more the cultural fit. Now we're looking at how is the values in this organization, and with a person coming in with this personality on these traits, how will that match the actual fit of the organization? And it's also here that we talk about interest. So what are the person's interests? Is there a match between what the organization is working with, or the values that the organization have, and this person's background?
So the second fit is, the second concept that we would like to present to you is about whether or not what we're looking for is something that can add new competencies to the team, or whether or not we want to strengthen the existing ones. So when research talk about supplementary fit, they are talking about strengthening the existing competencies, and it can be both professional or academic, and personal behavioral as well. So it can be all, but this would basically, most of it would be about increasing resources. It would be about just saying what we have, what we need, but now we just need to have more of it, in order to be able to reach the results that we want to meet. And the other concept here is a complementary fit. So this is where we are looking for something else. It can be both academic, it can also be behavioral. So it can be if there is some competencies or some qualifications that we lack in order to meet our customer requirements, for example. But it can also be if we want to make a strategic change in the way that we conduct our work, in the values that the organization have, or stuff like that. And the most important part here in a job analysis is to figure out the balance of the two, to figure out where in the job we need something that is supplementary, and where in the job we need something that is complementary. And it can be different, and we'll have some have an example of that later.
So really it's about more of the same or something new.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then the last concept that we want to share with you, and maybe the most important as well, is the concept of KSAL. It's not chaos, it's KSAL. And this concept, the reason why it's so important is because it's really good to structure your job analysis around it, and we'll get back to that later.
Definitely get back to
But KSALs is a combination of several parts of the job, of several competencies that we need. So K stands for knowledge, S for skills, abilities, A for abilities, and then O for other characteristics. And while I'm at it, maybe I should just bash the research area a bit more, because this other characteristics, it's a bit of a garbage can, right? So it's just everything else that we need, and it can be a bit hard to remember all the other stuff that we might need in a job. And as a psychologist, I would definitely miss a P for personality somewhere here. So maybe a C for personal competencies or something like that. So, but this will, in the research, personality and behavioral tendencies will all be covered under other characteristics.
Yeah, and we will get back to that as well. We will put you into each one of those KSALs here.
Exactly.
But timing is everything. And one thing is knowing how to conduct a job analysis. The other question is when, really, when do we need to do it? Because we have always said to you in the certification rooms, and every time we meet you and we tell you, remember to do the job analysis, we always tell you, make the job analysis before you actually test the candidates. But we need to be earlier. We need to start even earlier. We need to start right from the beginning. So the moment that the hiring manager is telling you we need to start looking for a candidate, then we need to start doing the job analysis. We need to make it before even meeting one single candidate, or before even doing the job description and the job advert, because it needs to affect what words we actually put in the job advert, and we need to conduct the right job description based on this job analysis. And it also needs to guide the first part of the recruitment. So also before the hiring manager, or maybe you, even meet the candidate. So we need to make it right from the beginning. So we can, it's this foundation again, right in the beginning, we make the plan, and then we are able to start finding out what we need and how to build it.
Really. And guide the decisions all through the process, all the way to the evaluation. But there's tons of steps before that, and I guess you know that. But it's just so important that we see it as a foundation, and we have it from the beginning. So we need to see a job analysis like a funnel. If we don't have a job analysis, then we don't have the adequate basis for evaluating candidates. We won't know what is actually needed, and if we think we know, then we might be wrong. So it's really important that we make these decisions in the beginning. Also because there's also, when candidates apply for a job, there's a self-selection right in the beginning. So if they see a job advert that is not accurate in terms of what is needed in the job, we might have the wrong candidates actually apply for it. So we want the right ones to be interesting and the wrong ones not to be interested.
Otherwise we sit with the candidate pool that is like, this is not exactly what we're looking for, and we need to restart again. So a lot of resources are being wasted there, and the words that you read when you read a job advert needs to talk to you. So it needs to be the right words describing your competences, and
especially if there's a limited field of candidates, this gets even more important. And then a job analysis can also be a tool that can guide the whole process. So it can also be a wonderful tool in order to make a structured interview guide for the pre-assessment or for the first interview. So we know a lot more about what is actually important in this job, what is it that we're going to assess in order to make the right decisions. So, but I also know that there's also a reality, and sometimes the job changes during the process. So does this mean that we can't change anything, even though that we get wiser or have new information or stuff like that? No, it doesn't. But we need to consider if the changes that we make is how they apply to the job, and if we should actually start all over again. Because if it's the wrong candidates that search for the job, then we have a problem in the later process, and then it's really hard to find the proper match in the end. And
also challenge why we then change the job profile. So if you have a hiring manager suddenly changes something, is it because they found a favorite candidate and they definitely need to get that candidate in? Then we do, as when it's structured, we are able to go back and say, well, your job analysis says something else. How come you change suddenly your...
because it's about asking all those questions. It's about being able to know when I'm going outside the structure, and then ask if this is a fair point or if it's not.
Definitely. So even though we are and you are experienced recruitment specialist, we do need to tell ourselves that we are slaves of our own bias. We always take decisions based on something, but the question is how rational really is is our decisions. So we need to stick to this structured process in order to eliminate or reduce bias in the process. So yeah, understand the job. The job analysis really is where everything begins. I think we've made that clear now. And remember that a job fit, person environment fit is just a lot more than just a match, conducting a job analysis in match and then looking at that. There is a lot more to it, and we will come back to that as well. And then definitely consider whether you need something more of what is already there in the team or in the company, or if you need something new. These three things is very important in order to conduct the job analysis and understand the job. Yeah. And now, choice of methods. So that was about understanding the job. Let's move on to the methods, really. It all relates to the job. So here we're coming back to the case house. Let's talk about how, sort of what does it actually mean? So Helena just introduced you to the case house here, but let's put some words to it. So knowledge is like, as it says here, like factual, conceptual knowledge that the candidate needs to have. So that could also be experience in certain procedures. So that could be like foreign language. It could be knowledge of lean procedures, for example, or it could be knowing some particular psychology knowledge or something like that. So that would be the definite knowledge that this candidate brings into the job. Another thing is the skills. Oops. Yes, the skills. The skills is something about the ability to use the knowledge into different job tasks. So using the relevant knowledge there. So that could be, for example, having a driving license, or it can be like having interview techniques, or it could be certain IT skills. So it's more the ability to use the knowledge and put that into a context there. And then we have the abilities. You do it, Helena.
You're pressing the wrong button.
Then we have the abilities, and abilities is like capacities, as it says here, that can be applied in different areas, and also different skills. The ability to use and use it for like a wider range of things. So that can be the ability to see colors, for example, or an IQ, a certain IQ, GMA, and so on. And then other characteristics. Yeah,
you did it.
I did it. It's more like it's the other that consists of everything else that we obviously find super important, and that is more personal attributes or competences that are related to the job here. So yeah, like EQ or values or things like that. So one thing is obviously knowing what knowledge, what skills, what abilities, and what other things does this candidate need to have. Another thing is like finding out, so how do we actually assess this? Because we need to tailor the whole procedure based on the case house, and that is really the very important point that we are trying to get across here. It's like tailor the process and all the tools and the methods that you decide to use in this particular situation for this particular case out situation that you have.
Yeah, and also why we said that this concept might be the most important one.
Yeah,
it's because it's so good to structure the process and also to tailor it depending on the job.
Yeah. Because we do hear out there that a lot of, we tend to have a lot of common recruitment processes. And here we're just challenging that, saying, well, shouldn't we tailor the particular method based on the case house. So how could we then assess knowledge? Well, obviously we would look at the candidate's educational background, we would look at the experience the candidate is bringing in, and we would talk to the candidate, and through the interview we would design some questions that digs into the actual knowledge, some keywords or some particular knowledge that we need to, or some questions we're asking the candidate, hoping that they actually understand what we are asking, and therefore testing their knowledge on this particular field. And then we could also say, well, can we conduct and analyze all knowledge just by this, or should we maybe make a multiple choice test as a part of checking the candidate's knowledge in the particular area? Then it comes to the skills. So how should we assess if the candidate has the right skills? So more of the same here. Again, we would look into the educational background. We would also definitely look at the experience. So here it's more, well, the experience in doing and using the knowledge in a particular way. We would conduct an interview, and there we would ask questions related to the skills, but it's definitely here that it would make sense as well to conduct a case. Let's say you're looking for a person who is going to educate, for example, then it would make sense to say, well, I can't really see into an interview or a CV if the person is really conducting good training, for example, in classroom. So here I would definitely need to make a case, like a work sample, really, a work sample, in order to see this skill being conducted in real life. Then we have the abilities, and they would make sense to conduct the cognitive test, general mental ability measurement in general. That is the best way really to test that. And under other characteristics, personality test, integrity test, background checks, for example, checking that everything is true, what the candidate is saying, but definitely also the validity that you have in PTP is a good way to check that as well. Behavior-based interviews, where it's more the questions that we use in the interview is more checking the candidate's behavior or attributes, traits, and then references. It would make sense. We could also use references in order to check knowledge. So if there's something we are concerned about that we haven't been able to check, then we would say in the reference, we need to ask that question. So it's not necessarily all time that we would use these checking method under each category, but it would be.
Yeah. No, there's no tie between each of the of the parts of the case house and the methods, but there's some methods that applies more on some case house compared to others. So yeah. But for example, the interview goes across almost all of them.
Yeah, and the case could also go across some of it, where it's like we are towards the end, we're like, we still have something in the case out that we haven't been able to check as much as we would like. So what do we need to use as a method in order to cover that particular area as well?
But that's a very good cue for me, I think, because we also need to consider all the time if the methods that we apply is actually valid. And that is one of the problems that might apply for cases, because sometimes we design a case which doesn't really say something about the work that we are asking for. So we should be really cautious with that. But also, just as an example, I think there's a lot of advertisement that ask for people with a ton of experience, for example. But research shows that experience only have a say in job success, in prediction of job success, under 5 years. So it's if it's more than 5 years of experience, then it doesn't really matter anymore. And also years of education doesn't really say anything in the prediction of job performance. And so if we, for example, ask for a salesman with 10 years of experience, what we are actually asking is more a proxy of age. And we need to remember that age has zero prediction in terms of job performance. So that is just really important to remember. So we always need to ask ourselves, the things that we're asking for, are they actually predicting job performance? So this was just to rely a bit on my old friends here again, and just to make sure that you have this, that you think about how your methods can actually help you get the information that you need. Another things I just want to highlight here is the interview. So as you can see here, the interview has high correlations with job performance. What you can't see here, but what they also cover in the study is that the structured interview has actually better predictive validity. So structure, we can't say it enough. And we think that the reason why the interview is so important is actually because it covers a lot of the case house, but still we need to remember to ask relevant questions. So we need to be able to say, what do we need to know, what is important in the job, and then ask those questions and not a ton of other questions.
No, in that way you save time as well. So it's really like every single question we ask in that interview, we need to know why do we ask this question? What should come out of it? Is it a knowledge question? Is it a skills question? Or is it more like a behavioral based question?
Exactly. All right. So we said no recipe, but still we want to introduce this form that you might, you can use it for conducting job analysis in the future. So it lists the case house, and then we want you to describe each case house, and then figure out which assessment method you would use to cover each of the described case house. So that's the concept. Yeah, and we've given you the opportunity to imagine that you're hiring somebody that could be relevant for your team in order to try to see how we can use this scheme. So we've tried to make a case for you, and we've tried to make it with something that we knows very well. So it's a psychometrician. It's one of our key employees here. A psychometrician is a psychologist that also knows a lot about statistics and are able to work with putting behavior in a form and being able to calculate it. So that is so it's a test developer, maybe. It's in really simple wording. I think that's very simple. As you can see now. Exactly. So I've tried to just list some of the knowledge that I would that I would expect, or I would need in a psychometrician. So there's a broad area of work psychology, personality psychology, and intelligence testing, but also the quantitative methods that will be very important, and something about scale validation and psychometric methods, and then also some domestic and international guidelines. So knowledge about that would be very useful. But also, if I had to consider the supplementary versus the complementary fit here, I would say that I would highlight work psychology, but also the quantitative methods, because the other parts, I think that we could learn the person, but this is something, these two parts is very basic, and you need to be able to have that to rely on it, and to have it as a foundation for the work. But we are experts ourselves in personality and intelligence testing, and also in the domestic and international guidelines. So I think that part we could definitely teach someone in not too long. So how would you assess? I would assess it in several ways. So I would always look at the CV, and I would look for specific experience, education within the field. And then I would also ask for things in the interview. So I would ask about the knowledge, and also try to test some of it, because I wouldn't create a specific test for it, or a multiple choice, but I could do some of it in the interview. Do some check questions throughout the interview. But it would be important that I ask the same questions for all candidates. And then I could also ask references for their evaluation of the knowledge within the field, if the person has worked in similar areas before. And then I would look at the diploma. And here I would look for specific subjects. So if it, for example, was a psychologist, I would look for the subject that they covered in quantitative methods. At least in Denmark, it's actually possible to skip almost all quantitative methods in university. I would also look for subjects on personality psychology, work psychology, and stuff like that. Yeah. Then in terms of skills, I would look for both handling data, statistical software, and also being able to do the specific calculations. And then I would also look for knowledge dissemination. Also look for language skills. Because we're just a little firm. We do tons of stuff, all of us. So that would be important in a role like this.
Should be communicating so everybody understands.
Exactly.
This statistical.
And here again, I would look at the CV and the interview and the references. But what I could also do here was to add a case. And I think that I could add it in different levels. So I could just ask the person to tell me, I could give them some of our documentation, for example. Then I could ask the person to tell me what it is that he sees, explain the results to me and stuff like that. Then I would have the dissemination. But I could also give a data sheet. It could be, and the more raw it would be, I would check for both data management. It was just raw scores. But if I had it already sort of structured, then I could just ask the person to maybe do a validity score of a specific scale. Then I would check more for the psychometric methods.
So super tailored to that particular job, the case that you're conducting.
Yeah, and also tailored for the different parts of skills, the different layers of skills.
Yeah.
In terms of the ability, I've made a job profile for people test logic, and that would be how I would measure it. This is a complex job, and therefore it would also be important for me to have this, and also weighted quite high. And then for other characteristics, as you can see, I've divided it into different parts. So I would both look at the personality fit for the job, but I would also look at it for the team. And what I've done here is for the team is more of a complementary fit, because I know that our team, the R&D team in PTS, is quite diverse already. So I wouldn't need that too much. So I would more look at what is expected from a psychometrician in a company like ours. And then in terms of culture fit, I would look at PTS's values, which is what the employees here has agreed on, is the values that we share. And then I would also use PTP to cover it, but I would use broader spans than I usually do, because I would have to make sure that we don't have too narrow competencies. So I would need to secure some competencies, some diversity, in-depth diversity.
Yeah, and that would be normal when we talk about values. The span should be wider.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I would look for spans, like cover it in PTP with spans from 0 to 70 maybe, or from 30 to 100. So it's more like a select out. So if people have very high or very low scores on something, I would be more aware. It wouldn't be because I would say that it can't fit, but then I would be aware, and I would be aware on also in terms of inclusion of the
inclusion and verbalizing as well to the candidate that you might find it difficult in certain ways, or you will experience a culture where such and such.
Exactly.
So
And just a quick comment on the education, and I think it's a very good example of how these other characteristics is really broad, because I put in a psychologist as an education, and I did that not because I think it's it's important in terms of knowledge or skills, because that can be covered in loads of other other fields. But the title of psychologists it gives some security. Yeah. So therefore I've added it here, but it might be one of the things that I would not include in the final job analysis.
Need to or nice to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Excellent.
All right. So one of the last things that we'll just cover here is about weighing the inputs. So we've had a lot of inputs here. Just in our example here, it's a lot, and we need to judge them in the end. And the most common way to judge it is a way where we just select all the information, and then we make a sort of a personal judgment of them, and it's really hard not to be biased in that. So what research suggests is actually what they call the statistical method, and it's not because it's going to be hard or anything. It's not very complex. It's just about looking at the average of all the inputs that we have and then comparing candidates to that. And this doesn't mean, the reason why it's better is because it's data driven. Yeah. And it's because, again, it makes sure that our biases isn't the most important part of the decisions that we make. And this doesn't mean that we need to screen candidates and just look at a number and then that's it, because our complex knowledge and understanding of each candidate is still really important. But it means that when we make decisions that are not aligned with the candidates that have the highest scores, then we need to know why. So we need to ask ourselves the question, why is it that that we will still believe that this candidate is better than the other, for example.
Yeah. So the data-driven approach it is, and we will show you how to get help to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So just to summarize here some of the methods in what we need to pay attention to. So again, choose methods that are only relevant for succeeding in this particular job. Save time, really, by asking yourself, do I really need a case? No, we've covered everything. Don't spend time on it. And number two is just as important here, because be aware of what the method is actually measuring. So if you're conducting a case because you want to check if the candidate is able to train or educate in a proper way, if that skill is good, then measure only that thing. So don't start looking at something else or listening to what the candidate is saying. More focus on the skill of training or educating. And then use a data-driven approach. Again, the more structured, the better. And we will show you how to do it in the system.
Yeah. All right. So we are reaching the end of the presentation. I've monitored, there's been no questions so far. But the things that we want you to take away from here is always conduct a job analysis. I think we've said it tons of time, and do it as early as possible. Choose the relevant methods and make sure that they are valid as well. And then include all aspects of personal environment fit. So not just the job, but look at the organization and the team as well. Then we also want you to base the advertisement on the job analysis. So make sure that self-selection is relevant. Involve the hiring manager, but make sure that you're involved too as well, that you are the key to this. And the reason that we need to involve a hiring manager is obviously to align business needs. And then adjust any old job descriptions. Promise me that you won't just accept to have an old job description from a manager and then base the job analysis on that. Make sure that any old job descriptions, at least they evaluate it. And then if there's nothing to add, then it's fine, but you need to make sure that there is nothing to add, that nothing has changed since the last update. That's really important.
And next time it happens that the hiring manager is just sending you a 7-year-old job advert, we have all the arguments for you here in the report, really.
Yeah.
So we did tell you, well, no recipe, but again, we've told you again and again, use the data-driven approach. So how can you use what we have available for you when it comes to measuring the candidate's personality, traits, competences, IQ, and so on. So choose the most appropriate assessment tool, and then prioritize the competences that is demanded in this particular role, and then create a job profile. So you have the job sheet here, or use the cards that we have available. So prioritize which competences is mandatory, and then create the job profile. Validate your job profile. So make sure that the candidate actually exists out there, that the pool is not too big or not too small, not too large, too small. So there is actually somewhere that you can find the candidate. So validate it and check for bias in the job profile. And if this is new for you, what you see here on the screen, then contact us and we will go through, because this is a tool or the function in on the platform today. So validate your job profile, and then consider the team and organization match. So have a look at the team, make sure that you know what the candidate that you're bringing into this team, what is the value, how does the team look today, and what could be potential conflicts, and so on. So use a data-driven approach to also consider the team and the organization match as well. And then evaluate your match scores and other statistics. And what we talk about here is really what you know from the match score. So when you click the job profile you have made in the beginning based on the job analysis, click it on the test result and create a match score. In that way you go the data-driven way, and you calculate it statistically to make sure that you stick to those demands instead of sticking to bias and preferences.
Perfect. So just to form a perspective, we've talked a lot about recruitment, but it's just to say it's this conducting a job analysis is important in all HR disciplines. So because if we are to work with development, for example, it is also really important. If we don't know what we need, if we don't know what we expect from an employee, then it's really hard to form a development plan. So it's just to say this doesn't just apply to recruitment, or hiring decisions. That is where most of research are, but it's really important in all other aspects as well. Also in onboarding, inclusion and management as well. Yeah. So we need to know where we hit it and where we have some gaps.
You know, as you said, it's not the end of something.
No, exactly.
It is the start of a whole new period where the candidate is actually going to deliver value for once into the company. So this manual is very important all the way.
We're running out of time. We have a lot to tell you. So, but just in the end here, we have, as we said, we have made a new report. We have a ton of other reports as well, both in English and in Danish. So if there's some of them that you would like to dig into, you can always contact us. We'll just update the slide here with the report names in English before we send it out to you. I can see that we haven't done that. And we actually also did a literature review on why testing matters. So if you think that might be interesting as well, then you can just reach out to us, but we'll send it all in the after mail. And then also just a bit of advertisement for the next webinar that we'll have. We know that the theme is going to be our new product, which is called People Test Extend. And that is a new product that dives into dark traits. So, and we'll send just a little bit of a teaser in the after mail, just covering who is the target group, how is it made, and stuff like that. Just a short intro, and then we'll discuss it more when we meet again in the fall. So, but thank you for listening in.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, and we hope that you had a nice time.
Yeah,
with
had a
us.
nice time. So have a good day, evening, night, or wherever you are.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.